Let's go ahead and start this. We were going to wait till the carillon was done, but I think you can hear us over the bells, and we're onto a longer piece of music than normal. So, I am Dan Dudley. I'm the CFO and COO here at Lakeside, and I have to give a shout out first, though I don't see her here in the audience. But today's my 33rd wedding anniversary, so Karen might be out there somewhere. I don't know, but if not, we'll be at Dockside service tomorrow morning. She told me to say 33 years of wedded bliss. Yeah, I got it right. She wrote that speech for me. So, wanted to give you just a little background on kind of what I wanted out of this whole thing. Three goals, right? From a staff standpoint, when you're looking for a new president, there's three goals from my standpoint. So, goal number one was an exhaustive search by the search committee. And I just want to tell you again that is exactly what happened. And, 200 applicants nationwide look, brought us a lot of people to look at. That committee did a huge amount of work through the whole off season and into this season to interview and have psychological tests and all kinds of things done to where we could get to what is goal number two, right? Goal number two, in my personal opinion, was to find the right person. And I believe we've done that, goal number two. And personally, then my goal number three was that this would transition seamlessly from the current staff to the new president. So I am not up here introducing these things accidentally. I asked to do this mainly so we could do that transition, and we could tell you that this transition is heartfelt by the whole staff, because the right thing to do for Lakeside and for everything we do is to get on with our business and get on thinking about Lakeside and get on thinking about the future of Lakeside. And so we have worked very hard to make sure that we were ready to seamlessly transition this. And we've got to spend a whole week now with Daniel. We have been telling him, our thoughts. We've been telling him our history. He's been, as he mentioned last week, he always has a pocket full of question marks. So he asks and asks and asks questions. And we are digging into what we do, and we are going to figure out then how to go forward, and we're going to figure out how to make things better. And I'm very, very excited about that. So I wanted to let you know a little bit about kind of where I felt this whole thing came, through from meeting my three goals in this whole thing. So the one other thing I wanted to say, Daniel gave me a little rib last week about we started the first day and we were going to spend the whole day together, and by the evening program, we'd only gone through like one of the 10 things we had scheduled. And I think he said, I'm a very detailed person, but I want to say, who has the pocket full of question marks? It's the guy over there, right? So it took a long time because we are really digging in and we're asking lots of things. So anyway, he's going to tell you his background. I haven't been one to stand up here and tell you his background for him, but I want to say that after 1 week, we are really enjoying working with him. Actually, one thing I wanted to mention before I bring him up, which is the Danbury police are here not because they're going to escort me off the grounds as soon as I'm done. And they're not looking for anyone in particular. They actually wanted to meet Daniel and hear his presentation today. I think Chief Meisler, I think this is your fourth president that you've been associated with at Lakeside. So, these guys are part of our community, really, and we're part of their community. So us working together is a big deal for us. And I'm glad it's a big deal for them. So they came out specifically to meet Daniel in this presentation. So anyway, shout out to you guys there. So without any further ado, right, we found the right guy, okay? And it is Daniel Rogers, and I want to introduce him and have him come up to the stage. And from this point on, Daniel, it is you.
Good day, everyone. It's good to see everyone today. This is, I think, having started on Monday, and maybe I'll need Michael to verify this, but I think this is my 23rd meeting since Monday morning, and public and community meeting. and tons and tons of time with the staff who have been absolutely generous beyond description. This staff is beyond generous, and the way that they've allowed me to listen, because I think when the staff came on and they heard I was going to spend about 90 to 120 days just on a listening tour, I don't listen quietly. So I listen probably on the noisy side. So if you say something, I'm going to ask you several questions about it, because that's the depth by which I want to listen. And the team has just been super great at allowing that kind of listening. And so it'll continue. We'll chat a little bit about that here in the next couple of minutes, and then Michael's going to come up in about 20 minutes, and he's got some questions from the community we're going to go through at the public level. And then when we're all done, I'm still going to stick around here for a moment for anyone that wants to hang with me and ask more questions or engage me in different ways. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. One of my great friends who's going to love that I'm pointing her out, Dr. Joyce Linton, happens to be here. So Joyce, I've not seen Joyce for a few years, but Joyce has been a long-time collaborator, and I really feel like, she's just been one of those people that push and pull the best out of human beings. Professor at the University in Toledo, still with Lords, I believe, doctor. I'm calling her doctor publicly before any of that. She's just Joyce. But one of the great joys that I have serving with Joyce was she asked me to join her in Atlanta a couple of years ago to teach on radical hospitality. And that was a phenomenal collaboration, and one that I enjoyed immensely. And have engaged Joyce and she with me in past projects with respect to how to build more concise and vertical and wonderful human systems whereby humans can be engaged differently, and we can engage the texture of humans in various environments more succinctly. And in my world, Joyce was one of the leaders and is one of the leaders in that space. So Joyce, what a pleasure it is to see you today. Thanks for being here. Yeah, let's give Joyce a hand. Yeah, have you ever been applauded at Lakeside? This is your first. There you go. All right. Well deserved. So thanks, Joyce, for being here today. What a surprise. And then, of course, those of you that have heard my story at any level know that I have 4 sons, 2 of which are in law enforcement. So for me to be able to meet the chief today and the officers that are present is an absolute joy. Dan, I'm not entirely sure they'd be looking for you. When I saw them, I'm like, oh, they're doing a background check on site. So it's good. But we're always happy to have law enforcement on site at Lakeside, because they remind us of the better part of the way communities thrive and the way communities engage in safety and in health. So thank you, Chief, for being here today, and thanks to your team for joining us as well. Also, thanks for your continued interest in the betterment of Lakeside's future. So I'm not going to go very deeply into my past very much. It's now, after 6 or 7 days, very well publicized, including our last session, which was Monday evening, has been on Facebook. And so many people have come to me and said, oh, we saw that, and we've heard, and we've read, and we've done our own research. Thank God for Google and LinkedIn, right? Yeah, so you know. So I won't dig too much into that, except to say that, like everyone, having come up through childhood, we learn and appreciate at varying levels how deeply and respectfully we have to understand the human condition from the early framing of our childhood. And those early childhood development years are so critical. And that's so true right here at Lakeside, because one of the things I love about Lakeside is the sheer number of unattended minors that run around here. Anywhere outside the gate, we would actually be calling the chief and like, oh, we've got an unattended minor. But here, if the minor's not unattended, we're like, oh, they shouldn't be walking with their parents. They should be out walking by themselves. I say that in jest, but it's a part of the miracle and the experimentation that is Lakeside. How many would agree? Show of hands, that one of the great things is that our kids feel safe enough to just walk down the street by themselves. What a tremendous thing that is. And so that early childhood development obviously is critical in the way that you engage Lakeside and engage Lakeside as a grandparent and as a parent so that part of their engagement in early childhood development actually is remembered and encoded into their psyche so that when they're older, they'll have greater access to health. And I'm not unlike a lot of people on this planet that did not have access to that when I was growing up. Was not raised in a nuclear family, was raised in a lot of violence. I knew violence way earlier than I should have ever known violence. Came through that. I'm actually from Lorraine in a small Puerto Rican village called Quempero. And so, no, I'm not Puerto Rican. That's just where we lived. But I thought I was Puerto Rican until somebody pointed it out to me when I was about 14. I was as shocked as anyone to find out that, in fact, I was not Puerto Rican. But that village, that Puerto Rican village, those moms, I could walk into any of their house and get a meal, even though I couldn't get a meal of my own. So I had that love and that care from a family, from a community family perspective, but other than that, I was vastly on my own by the time I was 14. I like to say I put myself through junior high school, which is a weird thing to say, and put myself through high school, which is even weirder thing to say. Graduated on my own. No one came to my graduation. Left home immediately. As a matter of fact, I took my father's car because I had enrolled myself in college. And 3 weeks later, he finally noticed his car was missing. And he called me and he said, where's my car? And I said, oh, I have it in Mount Vernon, Ohio. And of course, he asked me a few questions about how the heck that happened. And I said, well, I'm going to college. And he came and got his car. This sounds like a Lifetime movie, but it actually really happened. He came and got his car, and I continued to work my way through college and figured out the whole vehicle thing. And graduated and went on in life like most of us do. But I've also been deeply fortunate to have really, really caring people in my life that have mentored me and taken me aside and coached me and saw something in me greater than I would have ever seen in myself and coached that forward and prodded that forward and encouraged that forward. How many of you are grateful for the men and women in your life that helped you lurch out of your own life? Yeah, that's why a lot of us are here, right? And so I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate. By the time I was 25, I was still not doing very well, but I was engaged by two gentlemen. I was living in Maine and teaching high school in Maine, and I shouldn't have been anywhere near a school classroom, but I was. And these two guys that had recently become friends just took me aside one night and really poured out their hearts and soul into observations about me. And they did it in such a way that really caused me to realize that I was in the company now of people that were living in an observational level that I had never experienced. So they said that they would mentor me and coach me for the next 2 years, and that's exactly what happened. I gave them my life in ways that was really important. And these two gentlemen really just turned my life completely around. They helped me understand that what had happened in my life and what I had experienced no longer had to define my existence, but could shape me moving forward, and that I could remain who I was, but I didn't have to remain how I was. And those were the years that began to shape and form what would become the rest of my career in life, not just nationally, but around the globe. I've been able to experience life and training at really wonderful and deep levels. And of course, that led me to Cherry Street, and I brought that aspect of humanity and wanting to see people get better to Cherry Street Mission Ministries in Toledo, Ohio. And 18 years later, last summer, I was succeeded in that position and thought that I would roam the country, just coaching and mentoring others, and realized that I was out there doing that in the last year, that I had some personal goals. I had achieved what I wanted to professionally, but I had not achieved what I wanted to personally. There were some still personal things that I wanted to experience in life. And Lakeside became available through a recruitment conversation, and one thing led to another. And as we say in downtown, in my world, bada bing, bada boom, here we are. And so I'm so very grateful. Of course, there was a lot of bada and a whole lot of bing. But thank you so much. One laughter. I got it. She's the closest. And so here I am, and I have to tell you, I can't be more thrilled and more pleased to be a part of a community that loves one another, cares about their kids, cares about the family structure, cares about our ideals that stretch all the way back to 1873 when two wild and crazy guys decided to put an axe to a tree and knock down the first tree so we could, in 147 years, continue on a very long experiment about how families and individuals become family at a different nuclear level. And so here we are at Lakeside, once again, looking at history, right? And there are always three kinds of people when we think about history, because obviously Lakeside is rich in history. The third group we can almost dismiss immediately. The third group of people that walk around history are those that really don't care very much about it. The other two groups of people are people that lean back into history. So critical are our archivists and our historians that reach constantly back and remind us of our better self. They remind us of our ideals. They remind us of those United Methodist pastors that decided to run an experiment on it and started clearing a field. Do you know in 1873 that was one thing, but you know in just 2 years, look at me teaching you Lakeside history already after 5 days. I know. The Hotel Lakeside was built. That is crazy rapid. That's how quickly the culture was being developed. And so we have historians that lean back into history, and they invite us to lean back with them, to remember all of our founding and all of our virtue and all the things that bring forward the better part of who we are. And then the other group of people are people that lean into history from that historical perspective, and we lean into history. Those are our history makers. Those are those of us that want to lean into, and like those pioneers did, and lean in to an historical perspective. This great challenge that we have in front of us right now in 2020, why not in the middle of a global pandemic? Why, when's the best time to have a discussion than when we're all quiet, stilled, not breathing on each other, not touching one another? It forces us to conversations like this, because humans, we have to connect. So if we can't connect without a mask and we can't connect physically, we connect conversationally. How many have noticed that already? We start having conversations we never would have had otherwise. And so right here we are at Lakeside at this critical juncture in the middle of a pandemic with really an unknown and uncertain future with respect to how the virus will continue to be managed both globally and locally. And I'm asking the same thing that you're asking. Can we build conversational space that is deeply respectful and deeply careful, surrounded and encased in thoughtful dialogue and discourse, so that these two dynamic groups of people, those of us that lean back and those of us that lean forward, a natural conflict, one leaning back and one leaning forward, can we create conversational space where those two don't develop a win-lose scenario, but we develop a win-win scenario? Because throughout human history, it is those of us that remember the better part of how we develop together that create such space, of diverse opinion and diverse thought, but mutual respect and deep honor for each other's perspective. And from that crucible, from that place of mutual respect, great things have always occurred, not only in human history, but in American history as well as global. And so Lakeside stands right here at this opportunity, not because the opportunity has presented it so much, but as an opportunity that this community has determined it's going to take. That step, moving into mutuality, that step where we can create conversational space, can join these two dynamic and diverse groups of thought into and form a collaboration never before seen. Because I don't want our historians forgotten. I don't want our spiritual framework to be lost. I don't want the four pillars to find themselves in some chiseled down version of their former self. Nor do I want our history makers to be quieted or to be ignored or to be forgotten. You don't want that either. I know we have a diverse opinion, but you don't want that any more than I do, because you know that when there's a win-lose scenario, we all lose. All of us. Even if we won, we lost. We know this is true. And so these things I'm saying to you already know. But I'm saying them so that we can emphasize the day in which we live. Not just in America, but this moment right here at Lakeside. Those of us who rent. Any RVers in the park today? Let me hear from the RVers, right? Y'all are a wild bunch, right? Yeah. And the lakefront folks and everybody in between. Already in 5 days, people have said, oh, we're concerned about diversity. Oh, you should follow me around for a little bit, right? Because I have already heard 1,001 diverse opinions. Don't talk to me about diversity. We got some diversity going on in Lakeside. We also have rich economic diversity from the south of our property to this very lake itself. And there's concern among us about that. There's concern that we don't lose the affordable side of us. There's concern that people won't be able to find a place in space in Lakeside based on their socioeconomic place where their 4-year-olds get to roam unattended like everyone else does. Am I right? Can I get somebody to say hello? Yeah, and that's rich. That's rich diversity. Now, do we have diversity challenges? Of course we have diversity challenges. We have a multi-race challenge in front of us. Moreover, we have a multicultural challenge in front of us. Because multi-race is inviting and being inclusive and making sure that our institutional biases are assessed and brought to light. But also multiculturalism means that in a soon coming day, we have races and diversity actually sitting, and I hope I get an applause off of this one. We actually have multi-races sitting in seats of decision making. How many would agree? Because that's how our community is diverse. But here's the great news. Are you guys ready for the great news? You can't wish it. And you can't wait for it. Because diversity is not a goal as much as it is an outcome. So if you try to force diversity, it's not sustainable. If you try to create a system where we just somehow in some false notion start reaching out to multi-racism and multiculturalism without true assessment, without true understanding of our pinnings, our historical view, where we come from, an assessment at the staff culture and our leadership culture, if we don't understand that, then whatever we do this year will not be sustained to the next. How many already know what I'm saying? But if we really want sustained diversity, then my friends, you and I are in the same conversation and in the great conversation, because we're going to do it from the systems level, from the roots up, and let the fruit of our conversation bear itself, yes? And that's where we're going. So yes, of course we'll chat about it, right? And so this great listening tour that I'm on for the next, well, let's say this is day 6 of a 120-day listening tour. So good news, right? I've got 118 to go. Yay. No, Dan, where's my math? Where's my math guy? If I'm day 6 of 120, look, 100. Oh, come on, love me. Thank you. See, now how hard was that? 114 days to go. Don't worry, I can read a spreadsheet. So yeah, I have 114 wonderful days to go. Will I sit and speak with a police chief? Yeah, today was the first. Will I reach out in deeper and meaningful ways? Yes. Will I bring you guys donuts, not because it's historical, but it's the right thing to do? Yeah, of course I will. Right? Let's don't keep the stereotype going. I have 2 police officer sons. Trust me, they love donuts. But we have lots of conversations to ripple out and to have over the next several days. That'll lead us to a phenomenal process of strategic planning over the winter months. And the most valuable document that we're going to have in hand as a community, and by the way, I'm coming for you, which is part of the reason why we're having discussions like this all around the clock, is because I will be asking you to join that strategic process. I do not want this team, this board, the foundation board, to hand you a plan. I think that would be a disaster. I want you to speak into that plan. And when we're done with that execution plan, I want you to be able to turn whatever page you need to turn and see your thoughts on that plan. And that's how we're going to work it. It'll take us a hot minute, but by the time the new season rolls around in 2021, this team and this community is going to have a really clear idea, not only of our overall strategy, but the wheres, the whens, and the hows of that strategy. That'll be measurable, that'll be achievable, that will be attainable, and that will be accountable. Because that's the community that we live in. That's the community we want to live in. And so we have a lot of great work out in front of us. But please know this when it comes to the 4 pillars. Part of my assessment is to think very carefully about making sure that our 4 pillars are in equal measure, right? That we shouldn't have religion being overshadowed by education, or education being forgotten in arts and culture, and we shouldn't have recreation at any less of a measure. But part of our assessment has to be that our 4 pillars are at actual equal measure in order for us to build. We can't build on a shaky foundation that way. So that'll be a part of the assessment. But the part of the space that I love the most in that regard, and Michael, if you'll come on up, the space that I love about that conversation is the space between each pillar, right? The way this community hums like a human, the way we have rhythm and respiration and breath. You know, the less tangible things about us. That's the space between those pillars. That's the space you and I fill. How we love and enjoy and be loved and care and watch our generations grow. Just show of hands before I invite Michael to ask us some questions. How many of you sitting here today represent a multi-generational experience at Lakeside? Let's see your hands. Can everybody look around? See that? That's Lakeside, right there. That's Lakeside. Every hand represented both our reach back into history and our reach forward into the way that we continue to make the history you love and the history that you care about and able to sustain it. So everybody, if you'll welcome Michael Schertz to the stadium. To the stadium.
To the stadium. Thank you, Daniel. As you can see, the week that the staff has spent with Daniel has been very low-key. I mean, we hardly accomplished anything. I mean, no, truth, you can tell that it's very energized conversations and a lot of things happening. One of the questions, these are questions that came in from the community. Some of them you've already answered in great excitement and great detail, so as I come across those, I'll skip. But one of the things I think people have asked is, you've been here for a week now. Yeah. When we did this on Monday, you were here for a day. So after a week, what are some things you've learned that maybe you did not think about or experience?
That's a great question. So I didn't know until Wednesday I was not operating in dress code.
Hey, I wore jeans for you today.
I'm still in jeans today, but when I moved in here on Friday a week ago, I didn't know we had a dress code. I brought all jeans. I found out on Wednesday, oh, by the way, Dan, you're dressing wrongly. Okay, so I'm gonna go back home today and get more clothes. So that was good. I also didn't know that I should get my temperature checked every day. I know, Joyce, you would think, right? But I wasn't working when the virus came around. I was sitting in my living room like most of us. So not used to getting my temperature taken every day. So my morning begins with proper dress code and go up to HR and get my tempo tested. That's been wonderful, great information to have. But Michael, really beyond humor, the greatest thing that I'm learning this week is, though we have almost diametric opinions, every conversation that I have always ends, no matter what their opinion is, no matter who is talking, always ends with something like this. But I know we can work it out. Always. The spirit of cooperation and collaboration is here. We just have to dig that wall, I think, a little deeper, and we'll get there. We'll water the conversations that need to take place. But Michael, I'm telling you, the desire and the spirit of giving to one another conversationally is alive at Lakeside.
So what's most surprised you in your week-long, your first 6 days here? And what has most excited you in your learning tour that you've been on for the last 6 days?
Well, I think the thing that most surprises me about Lakeside is how complex being a part of an ongoing, living, breathing community is, right? So Lakeside is many, many things, but Lakeside is people. Lakeside is streets. It's harbor. Lakeside is municipality. Lakeside is rules. I don't know. Have anybody experienced any of the rules here at Lakeside? We got a few of them, right? So it's all of those things. Don't ask me why, but I was Thursday before I realized nobody smokes at Lakeside. Now, don't ask me, right? I've just been so busy. I was in, matter of fact, I think it was one of our evening gatherings, and it came up. Someone said it's not permitted to smoke at Lakeside. Now, you would have thought I would have just made that connection, right? I didn't. I just thought we were a bunch of non-smokers. But I hope it doesn't shock anybody, but you're not supposed to smoke here. Okay, so good. So big surprise, right? But how freeing it is. By the way, I'm not a smoker, but how freeing it is to live in a tobacco-free society, for sure. Yeah, I like it. I love it.
So I know you've only been here for a week, but some of our Lakesiders would like to know, is there anything you haven't tried yet or learned yet that you're dying to try or learn?
I'm dying to try to learn. So this is a non-food question, I'm thinking.
Non-food question.
Oh, this is a non-food question. Because food is a topic here. How many have noticed? Food is a topic here. As a matter of fact, Bill Drackett is no, I don't think Bill and Mame are here today. Bill Drackett told me on Tuesday night, he said, I'm going to give you a challenge assignment. And I'm thinking from Bill, right, it's going to be like a real challenge assignment. He goes, your assignment for the rest of the week is to get a patio donut. I'm like, man, I'll go knock that off right now. What are you talking about, right? What I couldn't have been prepared for is how warm the donut is. Is that shocking? I haven't had a warm donut my entire life. So back to the fact this is a non-food question. So I have enjoyed getting to know the economic diversity here. I've really enjoyed that. And all of my conversations from the south to the north is rich in that, right? And this mutual concern everyone has from the lake to our south entrance to maintain that level of economic diversity. It's a big concern. And I'm glad that it's a big concern, right? We need it to be. So I was actually surprised by that diversity, and I've been surprised by how everyone wants to care for the invigorating of that.
What is some of the things you're excited to do with your family when the grandkids come? What's one of the first things you want them to experience?
Oh, I want to turn them loose. That's the most exciting thing. I want to be able to bring my kids here and not see them for 8 hours. Not because I don't want to see my grandkids for 8 hours, but I want, as a grandparent, to experience that. Not that I want that to happen, but I want that. I want to watch that experience, right? I mean, anywhere outside this gate, you have to watch your grandkids, man, like a hawk, right? But not here, man. So I'm really interested in experiencing what other grandparents have experienced, the joy of this culture. Yeah.
So this actually came in as a very important question and is actually one of the top 10.
Okay.
And since we were talking about food, I was going to say this for later, but I'll ask it now. What is your favorite donut?
Oh, it was at the beginning of the week, but thanks to Paul Hubbard, it is now the chocolate coconut. See? Some chocolatiers in the back by the carts. Yeah, wow. So that was so I'm sorry, I've only had 2 donuts here. One was a vanilla coconut, and the other was the chocolate coconut, and that has won out, hands down. Yeah.
You've had time to now get to know the staff, spend time with the senior staff and some of the breakdowns of the different departments and things like that. You've been on a lot of tours of the facilities and seen how a lot of things operate. There's a lot more coming up next week. What is your overall, as you've had time to get to know the Lakeside staff and the teams that run Lakeside, what are your thoughts about the team and what have you learned about them that Lakesiders already know but want to hear your opinion of too?
Well, I'll start with what you already know. You know this is the hardest working group of people on the planet. Can we give them a hand? Yeah. I mean, if you just look nationally and globally, there are whole corporations that have absolutely failed during the virus for tons of reasons. In the middle of all this team really cinched up their collective belt and not only got us through a great season, but gave us a great season. So not only did we just like maintain some kind of a level, we actually achieved in ways I don't even think you guys could have imagined. And so hands off to you guys for the deep dedication. You and I, yeah, please. So I've also been chatting with the staff because I have fresh eyes. They think they're okay. They're not, right? Of course they're not. They're absolutely exhausted and fatigued and outmanned, outgunned, overworked, and working 7 days a week around the clock. So I know, right? Except for the fact that if you decide to serve such a team, you get to stand back and start thinking about how do they recover, how do they get well, what is our process by which we enrich them emotionally and behaviorally? How do we continue to enrich them in terms of our friendship and our appreciation for them? And so that's what I'm gearing up for now, and I'm already talking to the team. I will tell you a surprising thing. I said just off the cuff, I wasn't even planning. I just said, you know what? I said it to a group of staff. You know, when this is all over with, I'm going to take you guys all to dinner. You know what their response was? Oh, please don't. Please don't take us to dinner, right? Want to know why? Because they considered it an event. I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are tired. I just want to go love on you over dinner. And you believe that's an event. I get it, right? So we're going to let this team rest and recover. And I'll probably take you guys all out to dinner in November and give you time to recover so we can do something simple as eat. That will be great. So that's this team, right? So I'm really geared now. This is my only job right now with respect to the staff is to make sure this team is well loved, well cared for, and has a chance to really recover.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You mentioned the pandemic. You mentioned, and it's true. I can actually give the date, and Dan Dudley knows this. March 19th is when we I'd switch over to our crisis mode. With a week before that, in discussions before we hit that button, and we've been going strong since then. And it's been our pleasure to be able to provide the seasons and the opportunities that we have with the social distancing and all the protocols that we're ever changing, especially in May and June, but making sure that we've been able to offer that to this community. So one of the questions that came through was, do you have fears coming into an organization as it works to survive during this pandemic, not just during the summer, but throughout the year?
So the exact question is what?
So the exact question is, do you have any fears coming in as the new leader into an organization as it works to survive the pandemic, not just in the summer, but over the entire year?
Yeah, so you know, every great skill has a negative side. How many have noticed, right? So the best of you also has the bad side of you because it's our blind spot. So because of my upbringing and the way that I've traveled through life, I'm one of these guys that don't entertain many fears. It's also a blind spot, right? Like I go through something like, oh, I should have been afraid of that, right? So the good news for the team is that I don't have any fears about it. I don't have any fears for a couple of reasons. One is that this team has already demonstrated that it will continue to adapt and dig into new trenches in new ways. So what else could I ask for with respect to serving you all? But beyond all of that, there have been, I don't know if we've learned what we need to learn yet, but I'm going to tell you, we are walking out of the 2020 season with a wagon load of discovery, right? And we're going to put every ounce of that discovery into a learning process to find out what did we learn and what can we reproduce and what we should never do again, right? But they're all discoveries, and you are in a discovery-rich environment because, as I said a moment ago, Lakeside, from its inception until this very day, is a massive experiment. And we are still running experiments. One of our sustaining qualities is our ability to experiment entrepreneurially with respect to new ideas. So I'm excited, actually, the exact opposite. I'm excited to see the discoveries that we could put into practice, Michael, to see if we could learn something that will continue to bring value rich to this community.
Thank you. Are there thoughts, you talked a lot about strategic planning a few moments ago. Are there thoughts on strategic planning? I should say, what are your thoughts on strategic planning? And what is the process you plan to use? So if you could go into a little bit more detail from what you were talking about earlier as to how you plan to develop the next strategic plan for Lakeside.
Yeah, so our process will be this really quickly. One is we'll let the team get past Labor Day and bring everybody together and give everyone one full day of erasing the whiteboard. We're going to get everything on the whiteboard, and then we're going to erase it, and we're going to unpack the entire season. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to start engaging the boards of both the foundation and the association and members of the community. You'll get this invitation. If you want to be a part, I would invite you into the process of how we develop a value proposition for Lakeside, which we really are in need of. And then we're going to release the operations team to start planning our operation plan for 2021 and let that infuse rich data to begin the strategic plan process. So as we start our strategic plan process, we'll have the debrief, we'll have the nutrient-rich operational plan, we'll have the value of our proposition, and we'll begin that process. And again, you will be invited to that process, not as an observer, and I hope you hear me this carefully. I do not want you to observe others strategically planning for you. I want you to be engaged in strategic planning so that if you want to, you'll see yourself and your ideals show up in the process and in final product. So from there, Michael, we'll go to execution planning, and by that time rolls around, we'll be standing at the door of 2021.
Great, thank you. What relationships do you want to bring in? It's great to have Chief Meisler here and to be a part of meeting you today. What relationships do you want to develop with the surrounding community and the surrounding region?
Well, one of the things I've heard pretty consistently in the evening gatherings is that we're interested as Lakesiders about what is our collective effort outside the gate. And I've heard that consistently. So you know, I'm going to say this very carefully. It's not negative at all. It's actually, I hope you hear it positively. I believe Lakeside is a powder keg looking for a match. How many would agree? No? Can you see it positively? I mean, good things happen with powder, you guys. It's good. All right. So we can actually not blow things up, but skyrocket ideals. And part of that is beyond our monetary relationship is each of us come to Lakeside with outside the gate experience-rich ideas. Your professions, your life history, the things that you do when you're not here at Lakeside, all is data-rich and experience-rich. And so out of that crucible, Michael, people have been saying to me, what is our collective good outside the gate? And so that's going to be a part of our process, right? Like, okay, you know, how can we enrich the community around us? And I chatted with the chief very, very briefly before we got started tonight that we're going to be coming for his community in different ways that we can walk outside the gates and do something really dynamic.
All right, and this is the last question. What are the top 3 things you'd like to accomplish in your first year?
Well, definitely a great strategic process and plan and execution plan. That's one whole thing. Secondly, to make sure that we've got great staff alignment, great staff capacity, that we build on the tremendous talent of staff, and starting in October, that we start pouring training. Joyce, I'm going to come for you. Joyce Litton, stop talking to your sister-in-law, right? So, Joyce, I'll be, I'm sorry. Joyce, I'm going to be coming to you to bring some of your great training to the team if I can call on you. Fantastic. And start bringing phenomenal. Jessica Betancourt and her husband, Michael, did a phenomenal job with some staff training this week, and we are going to nutrient-rich our staff. That's the second thing, so that when the season rolls around, our staff are healthy, they're happy, they're well-resourced, and we understand that. And then, of course, thirdly, is to really think about the sustainable objectives from a resource management that this community really wants to care about. Obviously, look around. We've got infrastructure needs. It's going to require us to really come together in continued financial strength to be able to build out some of our infrastructure and really think carefully about how that strategic plan rolls out. So those are like the top three in the next year.
Great. That was the last of the questions that we had. But on behalf of the staff, we're just very excited to be working with you. So much energy and great conversations. Enormous amount of questions being asked this week, which has been great. And so on behalf of the staff, we just say thank you. And I'll turn it over to you for any last closing comments you have.
Yeah, great. Thanks,
and just
Mike.
a reminder that if you are coming up and you would like to meet Daniel, is to please, he'll be down here, but socially distance and kind of spread yourselves out as you wait to kind of do a receiving line. And we just ask that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate you.